What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. In today's video, I wanted to further discuss these huge top-down balancing changes that Blizzard have been working on, which, well, before you know it, all of these changes, bar one, it seems, are now just in the game. Brigitte only has 200 health total, meaning a whole manner of things can actually one-shot her that used to not be able to. Inspire healing goes down as well. We've got a lot more to say about her for most of the video, so moving on. The next character is Orisa, who gets massive nerfs, but I'll be interested to see if she still works on her best maps or not. If you set up on Anubis A, do any of these nerfs matter? Is she still like the best pick for that situation? Possibly. But I think just in general, the other tanks are going to be much more applicable most of the time. I would say you'd only want to pick her when you can guarantee positions for your halt to get value, and remember, you can't get environmental kills on most of the maps you used to be able to, just based on the distance of halt now. So Orisa's going to be a lot weaker than before, possibly useless. Don't let this Pharah Buff take you by surprise. She moves faster now, and in order to compensate to retain the same level of fuel as she used to, they reduce its regeneration, but I'm pretty sure you fly the same amount, and Pharah can now escape out of barrage sooner. Roadhog got his massive damage buff. Fire rate decrease, of course, but now his full buckshot will do 175 to the body, and it can headshot, meaning that all sorts of breakpoints get destroyed by this damage buff. So Roadhog is going to be a tough customer when he lands his hooks, though he may still be weak just based on how many cooldowns can exploit his big fat belly. His matchup against Reaper may be favored due to how much damage he's packing, so be careful. A lot of matchups you're really going to have to be wary of. He may even be even up against Brig now, where he used to get hard countered by her, as we'll go to explain in the video. Sigma's stats go down significantly, but none of this changes the reasons why he's good. A tank having his damage and interactions with a shield. I mean, he's Roadhog with a shield, basically, if you don't miss, if you can aim and target his abilities properly. So we've got a guide coming up on Sigma next that I think if you follow his correct playstyle, these nerfs won't hold you back too much, especially when you consider the matchups he has in the game. Like Zarya might be the easier go-to damaging tank that still provides some defense, but Sigma having a barrier that he can move, even if it's a bit weaker, still is very flexible in many matchups. The Symmetra changes did not go through in entirety. So the huge buff to her beam, that's gone, but the teleporter cooldown is reduced to 10 seconds, which at the moment doesn't look significant to me, but I think if they keep buffing it, eventually it might get to a point where it's really strong, because right now, really, it's a kind of one and done thing, but maybe this cooldown is short enough where you might get a significant second teleporter in a team fight, but I kind of doubt it. It's usually just used for the first initiation and then not too relevant after that, especially since it can be destroyed fairly easily. And the Zen buffs went through, where he's getting his sniping capabilities back. 2 years ago, when Zen could snipe with his right click very easily, the power level of the game was much lower, and now that it's so much higher, him having this back again probably just helps him compete with the base point of the game and help put more agency in the player's hands to frag out from this position, considering how glass you are. And well, that's all the changes that went to live. With that being said, let's move on to the original discussion I had planned for today, talking about the state of the game and how we're moving towards a top-down balance philosophy, as well as the controversy surrounding a character like Brigitte, who I think is vastly misunderstood at both levels of play. Disrespected at higher tiers and misunderstood at lower. Blizzard's had quite the problem on their hands trying to balance Brig, because on one hand you could say Brig has destroyed the meta for the better part of a year, but after repeated nerfs, dropping her stats significantly yet again, a lot of players are upset that Blizzard is nerfing her into the ground. And the interesting thing to me is that I feel that the points I'm going to make in this video are going to upset both camps of players. Both the high-level player base that thinks Brig is overpowered, but also to some degree an average-level player in the middle ranks. So who do we want to upset first? An interesting thing about Brig is that she has a near ubiquitous pick rate at the higher tiers of play, but in average ladder games, players feel that she's weak. Why is that? It's really interesting. Well, some think it's due to teamwork or healing numbers or I don't know. But I'll tell you, based on reviewing VODs over the years and seeing how players play Brig, but also just the game in general, I think I know exactly why Brig struggles at lower ranks. It's because a lot of Overwatch players position to play Overwatch team fights as if they're playing World of Warcraft, not a shooter game. What I mean is, in World of Warcraft, you don't have to worry so much about the angle you're playing, your vantage point, and jockeying for position against the enemy. It's not like playing a human player that's going to be creatively moving and dodging you, right? Like, it's not the same thing. Or sort of like playing a very simplistic boss in Diablo, where they stand there, you walk towards them, you spam your abilities at them, and maybe you dodge a little bit. But generally speaking, your positioning is dead set right on top of them. There's no FPS angles involved. The problem is, if you apply that to Overwatch, which a lot of players do, a lot of things don't perform well, and Brig, in her new reworked form, possibly is one of the biggest losers in trying to apply that bad playstyle, because, well, she's not designed, anymore anyway, to have the stats to square up against the enemy and receive poke. That's not how Brig works. Instead, I want to try to give you guys some tips because, well, it turns out I actually love playing Brig. I play tanks more, but I'm a 4K Brig player, have about 60% win rate lifetime. Love playing her on the Switch as well, top 500 on that. I love a support character that doesn't need FPS aim. That's my bread and butter. And I'd hope you could see this either in my own gameplay from this video or in the many videos I've posted that has Brig in it. You want to be navigating through the team fight and find your matchups where you can toss your stats at something that can't handle it. That's a nerdy way to say it. Let me try an analogy that will work for some of you. Brig is kind of like a linebacker in American football. Okay, I know I just lost lots of you, but the analogy is perfect because in American football, there is big linemen in the way, and in the back is the quarterback, the squishy. What the linebacker can do on a blitz is weave past the big, irrelevant tank players or linemen to make a beeline right at the quarterback and get a sack and make a big play where the meaningful stuff is going on, right? Brig is the same way, where once she got reworked, she went from easily oppressing tanks to either being even or needing to avoid the matchup. Like, up against a Reinhardt, you can't just swing on him and expect to live like you used to be able to. He's got steadfast now, his hammer swings does too much damage. You have to pick your engagements much more intelligently now as Brig, but if you know, well, I have to avoid that fight and play well, the counter, quote unquote, doesn't matter. Another mistake that crops up in lower tiers of play is that because everybody plays that boss fight style where they both poke at the choke at each other, spam feels like it's way better against Brig for lower ranked players than it actually is, right? And this is something that I have talked to some of you guys on Twitter about, where players will say, well, in Plat, Brig doesn't work like she does at higher tiers because, well, spam just counters her. Spam damage. And my question is, do you really think that Plat players can aim spam better than pros? They can't, okay? The aim of higher ranked players and the focus fire and the targeting of characters out of position is way better as you get in higher tiers, but yet Brigitte goes up in value, not down. The reason for that is because when you optimize Brig's play and position her away from those things, covering the spots that she wants to, you don't counter her. It's not possible. And for your guys' benefit, what we're going to do is put a form in the description for you to submit Brigitte replay codes of the new nerfed version of Brig so that we can get some better examples of mistakes in matchups that most players make. Because I still think she's going to be insane at all the things she normally does. It's just going to be even harder to play her now, but there's a flow chart of adjustments you can make that once you learn the game sense for Brig, anybody can dominate like a pro Brig if you just learn the matchups. Although all of that is true, let me switch gears now to probably irritate some higher level players who don't agree with this, but should, is that a lot of the communication around Brig is very disrespectful to the skill set that she actually has. Players say that she's easy, like she just gets free value without effort. And not only is that incorrect, it's also disrespectful to the players that are struggling to optimize her. And here's how I would describe it. The reason why high-level players call Brig easy is because once you get up to a higher rank, there's a certain set of Overwatch knowledge that is just required, and then on top of that, you also have to aim skill shots in order to compete. The reason why they don't like Brig is because if you apply all the same logic that you should be applying to a character like Lucio, who is going to make a lot of the same plays as Brig, cover the same positions, attack the same things, peel in a similar way, well, you can just do that same job, but slightly easier as Brig. And given the current meta with how strong disables and stuns are, probably a lot easier on Brig rather than Lucio. But that doesn't mean Brig is just an easy character to play. She's just easier than Lucio, right? There's that translation point that I think nobody really vocalizes clearly when they say Brig's overtuned is that the truth is Brig's overtuned if you're already a higher ranked player and know what she should be fighting and how to adjust to all the situations, and your understanding of an Overwatch team fight is sound. Then it can feel a bit point and click in the right direction to win, and a bit unfair, which is why she has needed nerfs. And I think more players in the medal ranks would agree she'd need nerfs if more players were actually good at optimizing Brig play. Like, if you had to play up against a GM Brig in a gold game, you'd say she's the strongest character in the world. I mean, when I've played on alt accounts on footage on this channel as Brig, my team wouldn't die and we would just full hold all the time. That's the oppressive nature Brig can have, thanks to her ranged healing and her one-on-one dueling. What you have to remember about Brig play is that because Inspire has such a forgiving radius and Repair Pack is strong and ranged as well, your positioning can be completely for yourself, all right? You don't need your team to do anything for you. You just need to go attack the right things and not die yourself, and you will be automatically aiding them and building up Rally, which is the best support ult in the game. So yes, if you play in the death ball with your team and everybody's getting poked out, oddly enough, it feels like the quote skill shot characters get more value than Brig, but that's because on this specific instance, the skill shot characters are easier than Brig. It takes less game sense to just vaguely stand in the team fight as Zen or Ana and shoot generally towards the things in front of you, right? What Brig requires you to do is have the game sense to flow through the team fight. And then on top of that, have the mechanics of her kits to be able to hit her abilities every time. This is another thing that I see in Brig VODs that I just want to debunk this myth entirely. Brig takes skill, okay? Landing her abilities properly, again, are obvious to high-level players, but not everybody understands this or is any good at it. And I think we really need to get away from this nonsense of choosing which skills matter to Overwatch and which don't, because why on one hand do players somehow respect Primal Rage as a mechanic, realize that it takes a lot of skill to master, or Doomfist, for example, or Dragon Blade for that matter, which is slices across half your entire screen. The hitbox is so large. Why then can't we respect Brig hitting all of her melee abilities, right? Why do we bias towards Rhinehammer and think that's okay, but Brig's not for some reason? That's silly to me. No, the truth is there are skills to maximizing Brig, and I want to give you a breakdown of what I mean. If you're playing Brig and you see a hog running away from you, who should win this duel? The Brig or the hog? Now, this all was recorded on the old patch, so the answer to this may now change. But on the old version, where Brig had 250 health and hog did 150, he A, never couldn't beat Brig with Rally, just based on his spread damage and how Rally reduces his damage type specifically, and 2, would still have a pretty difficult time in a normal mid fight even at 250 health. Now that it's at 200, maybe he wins this, but still, look at the tactics that I can use, most of which will still retain onto the new patch. Brig with 250 health, she should always win this battle. And the only way you don't is if you make massive mistakes. Watch me do a few Brig mechanics here that is going to transform your Brig play immensely. I time my shield up with multiple of his shots, and notice a few things, how I'm boxing him in, facing towards my team, so I only use Flail to boop him back away from where he wants to go, not just for extra damage. Then when I know he has to reload, I continue to mace him, and I only use Stun to interrupt his ability, okay? I feel it's this type of engagement knowledge that a lot of low-ranked Brig players lack, in that I see them use Flail to cause separation when they don't want it, or use Stun too early to not have an effect when if you wait to use it, you can interrupt an ability or an escape or whatever, right? On top of that, a lot of players don't know Brig's shield bash is her escape with movement. It's a small little like Hanzo lunge if you do a 180 and turn away. So Brig's got a lot of mechanics that I think are really interesting actually for the game. And although a lot of high-ranked players might be upset that a support can duel a Genji Blade, well, up against Nano Blade, I feel like you need a character like Brig that has a chance to land some abilities on him to stop him. And even still with that, with enough resources, I think Nanoblade beats Brig. But I think with these tank skills, Brig's actually low-key a really interesting character. She's just been over-tuned forever. The reason why I'm not so sure that the nerfs that they're trying to put in will make much of a difference at the higher tiers is that if you play Brig properly, the way I'm describing, most of that value isn't in her Inspire for her team, isn't in her face health. It's in the combination of her brawling skill set, her Rhine skills of using her shield and melees effectively to run at duels and just win them. That's why Blizzard is really in a tricky situation, because I think Brig's cool abilities are getting undervalued and we act like they're easy, even though other characters have ones that are just like them and perhaps easier. But on the other hand, players are approaching the character so wrong that any proper tuning for the right playstyle feels like this outrageous overcorrection when, trust me, if you apply the things I'm saying to Brig in an average level ranked game, you just destroy everything in front of you. I've done it in so many videos so far on the channel already. I'll try to find them and link them, but it's truly unfair. You just have better stats than most things, which is why, as a seasoned tank player, playing Brig feels so oppressive to me. I love it. It's great. It feels amazing, but it's the power level of like if you were a mini Reinhardt, but had the kill pick-off potential of Roadhog, while also being a healer with an insane support ult. You have all of those things working for you, so unfortunately, I just don't know what Blizzard can do, because Brig now in 2.2.2 is purely a game sense problem, where high-level players have too much of it, and the average player don't have enough. And no competitive game makes sense if you balance for players utilizing things improperly. It's just a silly way to go about it. And so some players think she should be reworked so that she can have forgiving stats, but maybe have less impact. Well, we already know what that looks like, and that's Moira, who's a kind of a resident sleeper hero, and they were trying to find out ways to give her a cool impact play, right? I think that should be a goal for supports. I'd rather have it this way. I think the top-down balanced way, where we can learn from high-level players and aspire to their gameplay rather than dumb down the game and just make it like bumper cars so no one gets their feelings hurt when they don't see immediate success applying the wrong tactics. So the route Blizzard went is to make Brig even harder, where her stats can't stretch out as far. She's more punishable, but I honestly think that's going to do more for the players that aren't as good at her yet. Lowering stats on things doesn't always change the meta or change the reason why a character is meta. It might just make them more difficult to play, which in some ways is a good thing, but it doesn't automatically serve the goals we have. What I'd come back to is asking what even are our goals right now. Those are all the points I wanted to make. We'll have to see if I hit my quota in upsetting every type of player in this video, but I want to get that stuff off my chest because I think Blizzard's just in an impossible situation trying to satisfy completely different types of players at the same time. And well, this is why I don't think radical balance changes is the right way to get the result that they're looking for. And really, I wish we got more clear communication of what their goals are. Not in isolation, but what's even the vision for this game, because I think I'm starting to see it. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.